Welcome back to the Beyond the Bestseller podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Schuknecht, and today's guest is Charlotte Cramer. You actually have Charley Cramer in your on the screen, so I want to ask you about that. But Charlotte is the author of The Purpose Myth. Welcome, Charlotte, and tell me, do you go by Charley rather than Charlotte in your day-to-day life?
Thanks for having me on the podcast. I go by Charlie most of the time,
Do
yeah.
you? Okay, all right. Good to know. Well, Charley, then. So tell me about the purpose myth and why you wrote this book.
So back in 2015, my best friend and I were working in advertising. We were incredibly fed up and frustrated that as young people in the industry, we were just given the most boring briefs. I was working on banner ads for toothpaste, and she was in a similar situation. And we felt like it was just going to be impossible to be recognized. And around that time, we were in Berlin. I actually won a trip to Berlin to a music festival. And
Wow.
we were in Berlin, and a homeless guy approached us and asked us for some spare change. And we said no, went on our way, went to get coffee, sat down to drink this €5 coffee, and looked at each other. And we were like, we probably could have given that guy a euro. There was no reason not to. As we sat there and talked about it, we still felt guilty. And we were reflecting on how it was so strange that an hour later, we still felt guilty about this exchange. It was something that we easily could have done, and we didn't do it. So what was going on there? And as two people who worked in advertising, which I found in the early days, maybe a bit naively, our job was problem solving. We were like, how can we solve this problem? So we almost wrote ourselves our dream brief that an agency would never have given us. And we asked ourselves, how could we inspire more people to give to people experiencing homelessness? And from that, a nonprofit was started called Crack and Cider, which was a shop where you could buy essential items, and we distributed those to people experiencing homelessness. That store ended up selling over $100,000 worth of stock in the first year, scaling globally with a franchise model, way more successful than we ever expected. And then we started doing workshops and talks on how to find purpose and meaning outside of your 9 to 5. And that's the talk that eventually evolved into becoming the book. It started out more it was originally called Be Bad, Do Good. And it was about how we need to break rules in order to change things. And if you want to improve anything, you need to change it. And therefore, there's probably a rule that you need to break. But as I was writing it, I realized that there was something more sinister at play, where corporations and careers pages were advertising their jobs as places for you to fulfill your purpose. So even if you went on the careers page of the biggest tobacco company or a missile manufacturer or Juul, which at the time was being sued or had been successfully sued for selling cigarettes to children, all of those careers pages said something to the effect of come and find your purpose in this corporation. And so that's how the book evolved into being more of a cultural critique, plus what you can do about it. So without forgoing your salary, this is something that you can do to find more purpose in your life.
Nice. So, yeah, corporations tend to have these like their values, right? And that it's like, oh, we're so great. Like these are the values that we have. And the reality is like that may not be how what is actually experienced and felt by the people there or people working with the corporation. Anyways, yes, I can see how there's a disconnect there at times. So, in what how you explained that, are you helping people like through that book find their purpose outside of their 9 to 5 or find kind of what that maybe uh, I don't know what that alternate option is for them if they want to get out of their 9 to 5 or both. Like, who, as they're reading it, what are you helping them? How are you helping them with achieving that purpose?
I'm helping them recognize that they're unlikely to fulfill their purpose in a 9 to 5 and to find it outside and not try and identify a
Yeah.
corporation whose values are going to align with yours, because what are the chances that a corporation's mission aligns with your core purpose on this planet? It's probably impossible unless it's a business that you've built and done so with integrity and intention.
Right, right. Yeah, I having worked in a corporation for I was in a corporate environment for a couple of years, which was very not my personality, and ended up there because of an acquisition. But in that corporate environment, I really tried to be that person, right? Like, okay, like these are the core values, and this is, what you have to do to basically survive in this environment. And I really tried. And in the end, I ended up just getting laid off. Like I just lost my job. And does anyone there care? Pretty sure not very many people care. Right. And that was like eye opening to me. I mean, I think there's people who knew me well and cared, but like overall, like the leadership in the company who was saying all the right things in every meeting and, in every post online, whatever, they say all these great things about, how great it is to work there and how much they care about people and all of these things, and then I lost my job and it was just like, I just felt like it was just like, like just cut out and that's it, and yeah. So as much as you may think that your corporate environment is that you're cared about and that you're invested in your job and whatever, like the reality is there's yeah, you're what's the word? Dispensable? Not indispensable. You're dispensable to them, right? And yeah. Yeah. So, what sorts of purposes do people have? So you talked about this very specific story about, helping somebody and the kind of the homelessness issue. But I know like that to me, I mean, that's going to sound really terrible. I care about homeless people, but like like that is not like the thing that would give me, fulfillment, right? I have a different kind of purpose in the work that I do. So I'm curious about like what are those things that people find their purpose in?
I firstly want to ask, before I answer your question, what are the things that you're really drawn to? What do you feel like is your purpose if you had to articulate it?
Well, the reason I said what I did is I worked in the homeless industry for 5 years. Like I lived in Denver and I actually worked in a domestic violence shelter, but the organization I worked for also helped homeless youth. So mine was very specific to women in abusive relationships, but there was also different departments within the organization. Loved it. Learned a lot about myself working there. That was like basically my first real job out of college. But I also learned I really didn't enjoy that type of work. Like I didn't get fulfillment in that. What I got fulfillment in was the administrative side of things. So like after I had been there for a little while, I went from working directly with the, I want to say clients, not clients, whatever you would call it, the people that we were providing services to the administrative side where I was doing grant writing and found out about myself that my purpose often is in creating an environment for people. Like I mean, so the administrative work I enjoyed, and then that led to like kind of the next thing, and that led to the next thing. And now, as a business owner, like my purpose is in creating a culture for my team and empowering the people that work for me and helping them grow and be fulfilled in the work that they're doing. So it feels very different than the like I'm helping homeless people, right? But like my purpose, I have found. I actually originally thought I was going to do like missions type work when I first started in my career, and that's why I went into nonprofit. But then I realized I really didn't like that. Like I just wasn't a good fit in that environment. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
that's what I've seen in myself.
I think that there are layers of it, and I will answer your question. But what I'm hearing is that although you might have aligned with the ultimate purpose of the entity or the organization or the corporation, whatever it is, then we also have to fit within that. What are our skill sets and how can we best serve that
Yes.
purpose? So just because there might be 10 people who are truly passionate about helping protect feral cats, it doesn't mean that everyone is going to be best suited to be
Yes.
going out in the streets and actually trapping them and bringing them back to the shelters. So you have to fit that mission with your skills and the thing that naturally fits with you.
Yeah. So I want to add to that because I feel like as a working mom, I've always had this guilt over like, you know, there's women moms who like get really involved in all the school stuff, right? They get involved in, you know, the book fair and you know, bringing food for the parties and things like that, right? And I just my whole mom life. My kids are now older, so you know I'm not in that phase anymore. But I would always feel so guilty because it's like I don't have time during the day. I'm working, you know. And recently in our church, kind of similar thing where our pastor was talking about um, how you know they had some sort of giving back day. And a lot of people were coming and being involved, whatever. And he said there was one person in the church that just said, look, like I go to work and I make, you know, if I go to work for the day, I make, I don't know, something, $25,000 in the day. Like my role here is to give you money
Mhm.
with my time, you know, the time that I'm spending doing that is more beneficial to the church in the way I'm giving my money, right? Or the same, like going back to my like mom situation. Like I learned over time, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna go and be at that party, but I'll give you $100 so you can like buy whatever you want. But I'm not gonna bake that stuff. I'm not gonna do it. And like I learned like there's different ways for us to be involved and to give back, but I feel like for women, oftentimes it comes with guilt, right? Like if I'm not involved in being there for everything, like I feel guilty. And do you notice those two stories I just told? The church story, it was a man who said, I have to go to work and I'll give money, right? But like as women, we feel like we have to be involved in those things. And so anyway, that's just like my little soapbox on that topic because I feel like we put so much pressure on ourselves to give back in these ways. And if you're feeling that pressure, like it may not be your skill set or the right thing or the way that you're designed to give back in whatever that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
That said, you talked about the cats, and I would love to volunteer at an animal shelter. I've always wanted to do that. I love dogs, so that's something I would do.
You almost had a dog participating in this podcast.
I don't hear your dog right now, but
She's being quiet for now. She's behaving. So you asked what are the purposes of the people who have engaged with the purpose myth or who I've spoken through that journey. And honestly, I don't know, but I can share with you what I have found by talking to people about the commonalities that I see with purpose. I think while I was writing the book, it became apparent to me that all purpose is ultimately tied to our biological purpose as living beings, which is the sustaining and fulfillment of life. So, whether the way that you do that is through feral cats or people experiencing homelessness or through the environment, it's all ultimately to increase the health and safety and abundance of life on this planet. It's all about life. And that was very much my perspective at the time. So it was about finding the thing that resonates with you most, the role that you can play to further support life on this planet, any type of life. And over time, my answer to what is my purpose in life and what do I think people's purpose is has become to love and be loved. And I think that they're probably tied together. I haven't given it any thought until you asked this question. And I maybe that is the support of life and the abundance of life and furthering life is tied to love because it's the life of ourselves and others, and love is the fuel for that. So it's a very inarticulate way of describing some nascent thoughts that are brewing.
well, I'm glad I made you think about that in a different way. But I think that's I mean so when I talk about like my purpose and like I've always been like a workaholic. I mean, like I've always worked a lot, right? And I got better at that, but then when I started my own company, then that got worse. and but I love what I do, and I love like building a team, and I love, helping them grow and helping them feel safe in their work environment. Like that's something that I have not always experienced in the workplace. And so like to me that is a purpose that I'm fulfilling in, the way that I'm leading. I think it's really leadership is the like where it comes down to. But to me, like yeah, I know I work a lot. Like that's what I do, but I find purpose in my work, but I have been in the corporate environment where like I was not finding purpose in that work and I was really unhappy. So I see where like for me, I had to go create my own environment to be able to fulfill my purpose. And I feel like I'm doing that now finally. But I've just learned over time that like the purpose that people think that you are supposed to fulfill isn't necessarily where you need to focus your time. You need to figure out like what really is your purpose, like what you feel good about, like you said, like, I'm probably not going to go volunteer for a feral cat rescue or whatever. Like that's not going to, I mean, sure, I might feel good about what I've done, but like, I'm not going to, want to do that long term. Right. But what are the ways that you can give to other people? And when I talk about my purpose, the love and be loved is definitely a part of that. Because I want my team members to feel loved, and I feel loved back because I'm treating them well and they're, appreciative of that. So I like how you phrase that because I think that's very true.
I also wonder if a part of the purpose, what I'm hearing about why you find purpose in your role right now is creating safety. That feels very unique, and that you didn't have safety in some corporate environments you'd worked in. And I wonder if a part of purpose is correcting those prior experiences we've had in our life, whether ancestral or in our direct lifetime. And by providing something different for someone else, whether it's your children or your team, it's actually healing something in yourself.
I think so. I mean, I think, yeah, like I worked in an environment for many years where I felt, I mean, I had security, but like I always felt like it was, I just never felt safe.
Mhm.
And I think there are times where as a leader, I may not love a situation that's happening, but I'm never going to treat somebody the way that I've been treated in the past. And so a lot of times, like I take on the emotional impact of things and I like filter that before people on my team are going to feel anything. Like, I don't know if that's making any sense, but like, I think that leaders, or I shouldn't say leaders, bosses can be reactionary in times and make people feel really just crappy, like in whatever way, and like I'm just very, very careful with how I treat people. But then like people thrive when they feel psychologically safe in their work environment and excited about the work that they're doing and they feel valued. And so those are just things that I've just learned like how to treat people in the workplace. And again, like it comes from not always feeling that way as an employee in the workplace. My nonprofit experience was great because nonprofits are great workplaces often, even though you get paid very little, but the team aspect and the working together for a purpose, is great. That was great, but it was making very little money. I had to figure out a different path. But still love that organization and give back to it on a regular basis. So, but yeah, so yeah, I don't know if mine is a purpose. I mean, I feel like it is, but like, what are other things that people get? Like, what are some ways that you've seen people shift from maybe their corporate work environment or whatever they're doing to like a new path based on finding that purpose?
I think that the way I'm going to answer the question is maybe how I guide people to find that in the book. And it's a quote, I believe it's from Glennon Doyle. And
Okay.
he says, look at what breaks your heart. Look at the world and see what breaks your heart. Something along those lines. Maybe we can add it to the show notes correctly. And I invite people to just reflect on their day to day, look through the news. I mean, don't, but for the sake of this, look at the news and
Right.
really ask yourself, what is the thing that inside breaks your heart? Then find a curiosity within that and follow the curiosity. Keep following the curiosity until eventually you find something. Oftentimes, people will look for the answer to them feeling unfulfilled at work and expect that they're just going to come up with an idea, or the answer is $100,000 MBA program or training as a therapist, which obviously is great for some people and is the right next step for them on their path. But oftentimes people feel frustrated because they don't know what is the answer. And I think that rather than seeking the answer, just seek the next step. Identify something that you are interested in or curious about and start researching that. Then, if that ignites another question or another curiosity, find a book on it. If that ignites another question. So we dig deeper and deeper and deeper until it feels obvious and natural. But when we're at the sidelines and we've been working in these corporate environments for maybe even decades, of course it's impossible for us in that environment to imagine a future where we're doing something aligned, because the whole of our society and the whole of our career has been spent kind of dampening that and ignoring that and pulling ourselves away from that core essence and that true purpose and the calling in service of someone else's calling, which is likely the growing of their bank account.
Right. Right. So, I you made me think of like when I was in a corporate environment and had a steady paycheck and paid time off and all of those things like that were great. Those are things those are great things. And I had a little more of an ability to say like, oh, I'm going to go, volunteer or do something because I didn't feel like it was directly or that it would negatively impact me to be away for a day or for, whatever. Um, but I would imagine that following your purpose can often come with a like it just it's hard to go from getting paid on a regular basis in a corporate environment to uh, either going out on your own, or like you can't go and take care of feral cats and get paid the same thing you're going to get paid in your corporate environment, right? So how do you help people then turn that into a replacement of their income stream, or like or starting a business? Like how do you shift that? Before you answer that, I also want to say that I think you're also helping me understand that some of my purpose has always been helping people in a different way. So I even the whole time I was working for other people, I always was doing content online to help authors. Like that was just something I was doing. And I call it, sometimes I do podcast interviews, not on my podcast, but other people's, where I talk about that. We talk about like a side hustle. It was not a side hustle. It was a side hobby because I never really made any money doing it, but I just enjoyed it, right? I enjoyed helping people navigate the process of writing their book, of marketing their book. And so I was always just kind of dabbling in that, right? Which then kind of led to a part of the business that I now have, except I figured out how to actually monetize that, right? So, how do you help people get to that point of being able to either leave or, in some way be able to do what they want to do and be financially secure?
One of the hardest things about writing a book is that it takes a long time, and sometimes by the time you finish and publish it, you have a different perspective on the world. And my book very much, it did not touch on how to transition your what we call, or what I called in the book, a purpose project, which is kind of your side hustle without making any money, your non-profit side hustle,
Yeah.
into something that you're doing full time. I didn't explore that whatsoever. In the book, it just talks about having that purpose project alongside your 9 to 5. The subtitle of the book is Change the World, Not Your Job. Keep your job, keep your paycheck, do something that's just fulfilling for the sake of it being fulfilling. It doesn't need to make you money. It There's other purposes in life greater than working on something that fills your bank account or pays your bills, and segregating those things, creating a portfolio of things that you do in your life is a way to address this feeling of not feeling purposeful. And in the book, it talks about the needs to survive, strive, and thrive, and finding a portfolio of work that meets your needs to survive, which is covering your paycheck, meets your needs to thrive, which is learning and education and growing internally, and then to strive, which is your ability to contribute to the betterment of the planet and to life itself. And that's your purpose project.
Yeah.
Since
Yeah.
then, I have taken a very different tact. It was last summer, and I was feeling very financially fulfilled. I was running a design agency for health tech companies. I liked my clients, I liked the work, but I just wasn't feeling lit up by it anymore. And so I decided to take the summer off, and I called it my creative renaissance summer. And I just did all of the creative things that I wanted to do in my life. And as a result of that, as a result of creating the spaciousness, I was able to identify something that I wanted to focus on instead, that would almost meet the three parts of the pyramid in one entity. And yeah, that's definitely not something that's in the book. And it's a perspective of mine that's shifted over time. But, we're dynamic beings, and we learn and grow. And sometimes our books are outdated.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I think it's great. I think that for a lot of people, it's probably realistic to have that side passion project, right? Like, so having that helps you get through, it's like not being fulfilled in a corporate job can range a lot. You can be like, I just do my job, whatever, or to like being miserable every day. I was kind of on the being miserable every day side of that. But there's a lot of people who I know are in that company who are, they're not, it's like they're not fulfilled in their job, but they're not miserable either. But they're just, it's like you just do your job, whatever. But then they find their purpose in the activities they're doing outside of that job. In fact, one of my coworkers there coaches basketball, and it's like he lives for that, right? His job pays the bills so that he can coach basketball, young boys in basketball, and just like that's what makes him light up, right? Like he loves it. So I think for most people that's probably the realistic to have that passion project outside of work. That's what mine was for 15 years. But it was when I had to when I got laid off and had to figure out what was next, it was like, okay, I'm going to kind of lean into this and also into all of my skills and experiences, and, combine all of that, and was able to start my business and grow it pretty quickly. And and that was great. I was so grateful that I had spent so many years with my passion project with no real expectations of making any money, because it helped me build a presence online. It helped me just learn new skills. Like I think that's something that drives me too, is just learning. And so I think that's important. But maybe a follow-up book that you could write is like how to turn your passion project into an income stream. I think that would be really helpful for people who read your first book and are convinced that, yes, I need to find my purpose, and then now how do I monetize that? So I'll just throw that out there. Book idea.
Maybe we'll see. I really want to inspire people to figure out how to accumulate enough wealth from the system to exit the matrix that does not care about you, and find a way to live that's in more harmony, that doesn't require excessive amounts of income, that allows you to be more present, to not, need this insane amount of money to sustain a life that ultimately doesn't meet our more important needs.
Yeah. Well, I love that. Well, Charley, thank you for coming on. I will link to your book in the show notes. Any other resources for folks who are listening or watching that want to connect with you online and learn more about you and how you might be able to help them?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at Charley Cramer, and we'll add that to the show notes too.
Great. Yep. I will do that. And I'm just going to reiterate, I think you should write that follow-up book, and you can always join my author power circle if you want to be supported by other women who are writing their own books. Yeah.
I love it.
Just a shameless plug there. I'll just throw that in there.
Love it. I'll do that.
Well, thank you, Charley. Thanks for coming on, and thanks for sharing your book with us.
Thanks so much, Kelly.
Community of women writers to support and inspire you on your journey? Join the Author Power Circle. Connect weekly with fellow authors, stay accountable, and move your book forward in an encouraging community. Learn more at kellyschuknecht.com.